The Academy Awards has seen its fair share of controversy over the years, and the 1947 ceremony was no exception. The event gave rise to one of the most enduring and controversial mysteries in the history of animation, after both Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes were accused of stealing each other's cartoon. The Tom and Jerry short in question was the Cat Concerto, which was due to compete alongside the Bugs Bunny short Rhapsody Rabbit for the Academy Award in the category of Best Animated Short Film that year. But the audience were in for a shock, as the two cartoons turned out to be shockingly and suspiciously similar to each other. They both featured the same plot and storyline, the same characters, similar gags, and even exactly the same music, Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 by Hungarian composer Franz Liszt. One cartoon won the Oscar, while the other cartoon wasn't even nominated. How did this happen? And was this a case of plagiarism, or was it simply a coincidence, a case of great minds thinking alike? Today we will look at the facts surrounding this controversy and see if we can try to solve this lasting mystery. The golden age of American animation is generally agreed to have begun around the late 1920s, when animated films started to feature sound and gradually ended in the 1970s. This era is widely regarded by critics to be the peak of American animation history, as many of the most critically acclaimed, financially successful, and culturally significant animated films and cartoons were released during the Golden Age, and many popular characters were introduced to us during this period. The decades of the 1920s and 1930s were dominated by Disney enjoying their golden age, while the 1940s saw the rise of Tom and Jerry from MGM Studios and Looney Tunes' Merry Melody shorts from Warner Brothers. These three studios became strong rivals during this period, and the category of Best Animated Short Film was fiercely contested at the Academy Awards. The 19th Academy Awards were held on March 13, 1947. MGM Studios put forward a Tom and Jerry cartoon for nomination. Directed by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, the cartoon was called the Cat Concerto, on which MGM were pinning their hopes of a fourth consecutive win in the Best Animated Short Film category. Warner Brothers were hoping to disrupt this winning streak with a first win of their own in the category. Their submission was a Bugs Bunny cartoon entitled Rhapsody Rabbit, directed by renowned American animator Friz Freleng. As is customary, both cartoons were subjected to a screening process for the Oscar nominee. The entries were drawn out of a hat and, as luck would have it, the Cat Concerto was drawn first. In a 1999 interview done with AnimationMagazine.com, Joe Barbera recalls the moment when the Cat Concerto played first and was well received, as well as the angry reaction from Freleng. His Bugs Bunny cartoon was played after Tom and Jerry, and everyone watching got the impression that Warner Brothers had simply plagiarized MGM Studios' cartoon. Instead of Rhapsody Rabbit, Walkie Talkie Hawkie, a Merry Melody short produced by Edward Seltzer and starring Foggle Negorn and Henry Hawk, was nominated instead. Tom and Jerry went on to win the award, their fourth consecutive win in the category and their seventh in total. Both Warner Brothers and MGM Studios angrily accused each other of plagiarism, but it is important to note that the directors didn't. Both Hanna-Barbera were skeptical and Freleng was furious, but neither accused the other of stealing their ideas. Regardless of which cartoon you thought was better, the question still remains: was this plagiarism or coincidence? All sorts of explanations, rumors, urban legends, and full-on conspiracy theories have been put forward to explain what happened, and even after more than 50 years, we still don't have a concrete explanation. On the face of it, it does look suspiciously like somebody copied somebody. For starters, Rhapsody Rabbit is not a typical Bugs Bunny cartoon. Bugs doesn't speak at all, and seems out of character as more of an arrogant bully, much like Tom actually, and is also more prone to unnecessary violence than usual. Having said that, the Cat Concerto wasn't a typical Tom and Jerry short either. Nowadays, we're used to the cat and mouse duo finding themselves in all sorts of locations, but prior to 1947, Tom and Jerry usually had a more domestic setting. All of a sudden, we find Tom performing a piano recital in front of an audience at a famous concert hall. Both cartoons use the same protagonists and antagonists, as well as the same plot and storyline. In both shorts, the pianist is on stage performing a recital and has disturbed a little mouse living in the piano who decides to get his revenge by disrupting proceedings. In the Cat Concerto, the mouse is of course Jerry, while in Rhapsody Rabbit the role is played by an unnamed mouse who was never seen before or since. Both had similar gags and similar endings. But perhaps the most glaring similarity is the fact that the plots for both cartoons center around and are animated to the exact same central music piece, Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. In 2005, a theory was floated by Peter Gimple, musicologist and the son of Jacob Gimple, the composer who anonymously provided the piano performance for Rhapsody Rabbit. Peter Gimple believed he could identify the Cat Concerto pianist as Stuart Chikaski, and suggested that Chikaski may have been behind all of this, but this theory isn't true. According to historian and voice artist Keith Scott, the MGM recording studio records show that the pianist for the Cat Concerto was Calvin Jackson, who served as an assistant director of music for MGM on productions and who recorded Liszt's Rhapsody No. 2 on April 8, 1946. Most cartoon historians have subsequently put the whole incident down to being nothing more than an extraordinary coincidence, and the evidence does seem to suggest this. Historian Tad Komorowski did a fantastic deep dive into the controversy in his February 2013 post entitled Pianist Envy over at cartoonresearch.com, and wrote that recording records from the time show that both cartoons were in production at the same time, although production on Rhapsody Rabbit was started before the Cat Concerto. Technicolor has been accused of sending a print of Rhapsody Rabbit to MGM Studios by mistake, apparently confusing it with a similar Tom and Jerry cartoon. In his book Bugs Bunny, 50 Years and Only One Grey Hair, Joe Adamson cites legendary American animator and director Tex Avery, also an MGM employee at the time, as a witness to the Technicolor delivery. Anderson goes on to say that both Hanna-Barbera were alarmed to see Bugs Bunny on their MGM screens in a project very similar to theirs, a Bugs Bunny short which was closer to completion and was clearly going to be an Oscar contender that same year. The Tom and Jerry cartoon, finally titled The Cat Concerto, was rushed through the studio's production process and put up for Academy consideration in the spring. This version of events does seem likely, as something happened, causing both cartoons to be rushed or released ahead of schedule. Production numbers and copyright dates indicate that production on the Cat Concerto was indeed rushed, while production on Rhapsody Rabbit was not. Instead, it was released significantly ahead of schedule. It seems as though Warner Brothers learned of the accidental delivery to MGM, or at least were aware that MGM knew of their cartoon, and subsequently pushed Rhapsody Rabbit up the backlog. So it doesn't seem as though anyone copied anyone, but that it was an accident instead. Piano recital cartoons were especially popular that year, and we shouldn't forget that a third one was nominated at the same Academy Awards ceremony. Musical Moments from Chopin, directed by Dickie Lundy, featured Andy Panda performing a Chopin polonaise on stage while Woody Woodpecker appears and disrupts the performance. Sound familiar? Author Michael Barrier speculates that the three piano recital cartoons were all inspired by the popularity of Spanish conductor Jose Iturbi at the time. Interestingly, Iturbi had recently appeared in a handful of MGM studio films, including Anchors Away in 1945, in which he performed Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 and which co-starred, you guessed it, Tom and Jerry. Hungarian Rhapsody was a classical standard, bordering on a pop hit in the early half of the 20th century, and a cartoon centered around Rhapsody was nothing new. In fact, the music piece had already appeared in at least 4 other cartoons prior to 1947. Its first appearance in the cartoon was as part of a piano solo by Mickey Mouse in the Opry House in 1929. It then appeared again 2 years later in a Crazy Cat short entitled Bars and Stripes, and again in 1937 in the Fleischer cartoon, A Cartoon Portrait. Rhapsody Rabbit director Friz Freleng had already used Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 in a previous Merry Melodies cartoon released in 1941, entitled Rhapsody Rabbit. So you see, featuring Rhapsody in a cartoon was actually kind of old by the 1940s, and so to see yet another cartoon featuring the same music perhaps shouldn't have come as that much of a surprise. And those are the facts surrounding the famous cartoon controversy of the 1947 Academy Awards, and I will let you draw your own conclusions as to what happened. It is worth repeating that none of the directors have ever accused each other of plagiarism, although Joseph Barbera did seem skeptical when he asked the question in his interview with AnimationMagazine.com, "What's a rabbit doing with a mouse?" suggesting that Tom and Jerry was a more natural fit for this storyline. Friz Freleng did get his revenge of sorts the following year when his cartoon, Tweety Pie, won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film, breaking Tom and Jerry's streak of 4 consecutive wins in the category and winning Warner Brothers their first Academy Award. Rhapsody Rabbit would also later go on to cement its place in history even further by becoming the very first cartoon to ever be broadcast on Cartoon Network when the channel launched on October 1st, 1992. I hope that puts everything in a clearer light. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of this controversy and if it was perhaps more than just a coincidence. And also let us know which of the 2 cartoons you preferred and if Tom and Jerry deserved to win the Oscar. Thank you for watching and see you again soon.